This is such a short visit. I suspect they won't be making that trip up there.
This is what happened a few moments ago.
First of all, the Marines laid the wreath for the President to touch ceremonially, and I thought it was rather nice that his wife came forward to touch also this tribute by a nation. Remember, this is a tribute not just by the President, but on behalf of the United States of America to this treasure we protect, the memory of one unknown soldier who represents so many. And poignant too, because this state visit has been timed precisely to coincide with the 75th anniversary of the landings on the 6th of June 1944 that went well and could so easily not have. And it meant that freedom was achieved in Europe and Hitler was defeated.
Am I right in saying he's back for NATO again quite soon, or have I imagined that?
Yeah, no, it's true. The London will be the UK will be hosting the next big NATO meeting of leaders, so that'll be in early December. President Trump will be back for 2 days.
3 times in 18 months.
Yeah.
He's getting very comfortable, isn't he?
Maybe not meetings with the Queen at that point, I shouldn't think, but meeting with a new Prime Minister.
Yes, indeed. So whoever that might be, what on earth is he up to saying, yeah, we like Boris?
Well, it's fascinating because, he clearly feels a connection with Boris, but very unusual for him to weigh in on Conservative Party leadership contest.
So I just interrupt because on that pillar there you can see the little V, which is the ribbon of the Congressional Medal of Honor, which was given by America to the unknown warrior. Sorry, do carry on.
You were saying?
So very unusual for the president to weigh in on the Conservative Party leadership contest. Not clear that he really knows who all the contenders are and what their various positions are, and unclear whether his quasi-endorsement of Boris Johnson will help Boris Johnson or hurt him.
Interesting, he talked about Farage as well, saying he was a friend of his. Does he know how much of an issue that could cause here in the United Kingdom? Does he just not care?
I think he probably has some idea, but I think he just doesn't care. And it's unclear to me that he understands that Nigel Farage is not actually a member of Parliament and is not in the government here, that he's an MEP.
Right.
But clearly has an affinity with him and has met him several times. Nigel Farage went to many of his campaign rallies.
The President has thrown his views out there on various things, from Brexit to Boris Johnson to Nigel Farage, ahead of today, to try and get that out of the way, to try and move that to one side so that now we focus on the ceremony, the pageantry, the fabulous imagery of him alongside the monarch. The problem is here in the UK, we are of course going to keep talking about those issues and the fact that he has waded in, the fact that he is shooting from the hip, giving his views on these things. Of course, we can't get away from it, despite the fact that he would love us just to focus on these images of him alongside the British monarchy.
But tweeting from the aeroplane and calling the Mayor of London a stone cold loser when he knows he's going to be wandering around his city within the next couple of hours is not necessarily the smartest thing for a US president to do.
No, it's strange and it's unusual. And the thing that fascinates me about this president is that the economy is doing quite well in the United States. His approval ratings would actually be higher if he didn't do all this tweeting and if he didn't attack people and didn't sort of denigrate the office that he holds. So it's very sort of counterproductive to his goal of getting reelected in some ways. It fires up his base, but it turns off so many people.
It was laid on the instructions of Henry III and has a porphyry marble centre, which marks significantly the point of anointing, because the coronation service is focused, of course, visually on the moment when the crown is put on. But the moment of change for a monarch is when they're anointed. And that's where the power of it came through the missionaries here to England, when England was first converted to Christianity after the Romans.
Tell us about the gentleman who's showing them around.
That's the Dean of Westminster, the very Reverend John Hall. He is in charge of the building, and it's a royal peculiar, which means that this building does not owe any allegiance to the ecclesiastical chain of command. So no bishop has any authority here, because the Queen has all the royal peculiars as her own. She's, after all, Supreme Governor of the Church of England. But there is somebody who is called the Visitor, who acts on any difficulties that may crop up, and that's always the Lord Chancellor, who is known as the Visitor.
Talk to me, if you would, please, Rhiannon. I mean, this is happening at the moment, and then we will see tea, or certainly a photograph of tea with Charles and Camilla, and then the big event tonight.
Yeah. The state banquet is always the show-stopping moment of any state visit. The white tie, the dresses, the tiaras, but also I think for any visiting head of state, the opportunity to sit alongside the Queen to deliver a speech alongside Her Majesty, who obviously has those 6 decades worth of experience, Britain's longest serving monarch, the world's longest serving head of state. And there is no doubt that Donald Trump, we know that when he met her at Windsor, he was in awe. This made the trip for him when he came over here last year. And this will be the moment that he will be waiting for, of course, as we've said, just of this special relationship between America and the UK, but also about Brexit, about those issues of unity, which we did hear her allude to in her Christmas message. So I think the state banquet will certainly be a moment to look out for.
This was earlier, having a look around. You told me the mirrored room, did you say?
Picture gallery.
Picture gallery, forgive me.
In the picture gallery.
And a lot of the things they're looking at are, we've now heard from Buckingham Palace, are items that came from D-Day and from the build-up to D-Day and the involvement of the two nations. And I'm convinced that the Queen will refer to that, because of course she lived through it as a young girl with her sister. They would regularly sit for supper and lunch with their parents, the King and Queen, and heard so much about the tensions and the anxieties that were genuinely felt amongst the Allies as to would D-Day work or would it not work. And we will be commentating the big events that mark the 75th anniversary of D-Day here on Sky News. And I'm looking forward to looking back over that history and looking at what a tremendous gamble it was. A calculated one, but it was a gamble. And if it had gone wrong, the thought of the fact that ultimately that could have led to the totalitarianism of Adolf Hitler remaining in Europe is monumental.
Within those artefacts that they were looking at, including the draft copy of a telegram sent by King George VI to Eisenhower following D-Day, so of course that relates to what we're going to see on Wednesday. Also a letter from King George VI to Churchill encouraging him not to attend D-Day in person, and also Churchill's reply as well. But also all of the things on display were really signifying that enduring relationship between the UK and America. A nice moment there where I think Donald Trump acknowledges that there were some media in the room, looks up, bit of a nod to them in the corner. Yes, things about us being wartime allies. There are also some pieces in there which allude to Donald Trump's Scottish links as well. So, for example, King Edward VIII as Prince of Wales playing golf at St Andrews.